thing we were talking about. So yes, it's not a cure,
Mm-hmm.
but what it is it's a set of management tools that
Yeah.
really help you throughout your life. And like I always tell people, you can have 30 different tics, but sometimes I work with people that say, you know what, only 4 of them are really hindering my life that I really need to work on right now.
Yeah. That's really
So
interesting.
yeah, I always say it's like, you know, like Mary Poppins has that bag that you take out little tricks. And
Yeah.
it's just, listen, you could be 100% comfortable in your own body. And I love that. But if
Yeah.
you feel like if you go to like that baseball game and you have some tic that's really like you're feeling self conscious, that's something we could work on where you can do it and you feel like better. And
Yeah.
it makes you happy.
Right. No, I can understand that because I was talking to my husband about that this last night and about how I really don't know anything, and I specifically didn't look anything up, anything like that, because I wanted to have this be a very open. I wanted the
Mm-hmm.
conversation or the questions to come to me and stuff as I had them, and he was asking me, he's like, "Do you think you would ever want to do it?" And I told him, I was like, "Really?" I was like, "I wouldn't want to do it necessarily for like all of the tics that I have." I was like, "The only one I could think of in particular is this neck stretching tic that I have." Because it causes tension headaches beyond belief in my head, like right where my neck meets my head. There's always so much pressure there. And I truly do. I have like a click in my neck whenever I turn my head now. And it's from, I've always had some kind of neck flicking or stretching tic. It is
My
morphed into a stretch.
my son has that tic. He has a really bad, it's always been a constant tic that comes and goes, his neck stretching. So I
Yeah.
understand because that's the one that he'll tell me that causes him some pain. Have you ever tried going to the chiropractor, which I'm sure you probably have or no?
I haven't actually. I've actually, the one thing I've considered is acupuncture actually. I've heard that sometimes it can help. I considered that last year and more for my back than my neck than anything because I was having back tics and my back was just in pain every single day. And it was more just like it was muscle fatigue and muscle strain from ticking with my back because those are my bigger tics and they really don't come out as often. It's more of like when I'm having tic attacks or when I'm under an immense amount of stress, which I was. But I haven't done chiropractor. I honestly, I live with like biofreeze on my nightstand, so I'll put it on the base of my neck or the base of my head where my neck meets it, and that helps. But
I
no,
have
I've
two
never
things
thought.
that I would say. We have tried chiropractor and we have tried acupuncture. And what I could say is my son absolutely loves the chiropractor. He actually
Yeah.
asked me to go back. And I would say just really look for one, like do some research because you know how sometimes some of them just do a lot of the cracking and but
Yeah.
there's some that have a lot of different techniques where they use a lot of gentle pressure and stuff.
Okay.
And he tells me that it really helps to just at
Oh.
least ease some of the discomfort in his neck.
Okay.
And so, and magnesium baths. I don't know if you're into baths.
I I have a love-hate relationship with them. I've been doing them a lot more, especially since I've been running because my legs are always
Okay.
so tired. And when I was younger, my mom would have me take them every once in a while, and I have like some magnesium baths that I do. I have like a lavender Epsom salt soak that I do
Okay.
sometimes.
Hmm.
So I do that, and that is incredibly helpful. So I've been doing it more. I just get very bored easily, even though I'm watching like a Netflix show. Usually, I'm just like, okay, I'm ready to
When is
get
this
out now.
over?
Yeah.
That's how I feel. I know. I think as like people in this society, we don't know how to relax and just take
Yeah.
like a minute of like quiet time for ourselves. I was going to say just one more thing going back to CBIT
Yeah.
therapy. With me, like I might be out of the norm because my son has it and like that's the path I chose. But I think that it's a really good therapy, at least for younger kids and the families, because it's someone that's taking a real vested interest as to what's going on. You don't just get
Yeah.
it this because I don't feel like many practitioners are just like, oh, I'm gonna go get certified. I think you have to have some type of a connection and really
Yes.
understand. And I think if anything, it also just gives the family someone that they can have to lean on because I even help people like I know you're very big into like the educational part and going and
Mhm.
wanting to go into schools. I
Yeah.
help parents as far as like even what to ask for on my 504 plans or
Oh,
IEPs
awesome.
because that's all part of the functional intervention that we do with the CBIT, helping them to have different tools that can make their life less stressful. So it's
Yeah.
like they don't have to ask to go to the bathroom. It's just a said thing where they could just get up and go to the bathroom, or they can get up and go walk to the nurse's office and have that quiet space.
Yeah.
Or if they're having a bad tick night, they don't have to hand in their homework the next day. They can have an extra day. We want to
Yeah.
put less stress on them. So it's just, there's so many things that go into doing the therapy that I do, and it's not just treating the tics. We're
Yeah.
doing like everything.
Yeah. No, I really like that, especially the not having to ask to go to the bathroom, because that was like my thing in school. And it wasn't that I wasn't ever allowed, but being able to just leave would have been a lot easier, because I wouldn't have to have felt like I would have had to been like, hey, like my tics are being really bad, like, and trying, like, I just need to go take a walk real quick. Like, and I'm glad that I had that option to do that when I needed to, but it would have been so much better had I thought about like, oh, why isn't it just written in that and I didn't have a 504 plan or anything like that. And I know if I would have needed one or wanted one, my mom would have jumped through
Right.
any hoop she had to do it. But I just don't think we thought about that kind of thing, because in school I was normally okay. I had bad days though, where I did have to go to the teacher and ask like, hey, I need to take a walk. Like, I'm not okay right now. And it would have been so much easier for me to be able to just quietly excuse myself and do it on my own. So I really like that suggestion a lot. That would have been helpful for me.
And also another one, how sometimes, and this is just going back to what I hear from like the people that I work with, sometimes if people have like a lot of vocal tics, and if it's really quiet the room, I don't know if you can attest to this, sometimes it makes the tics come out more because you feel like everyone like, so I always suggest to parents too, if they're having a bad day, they can take the test in like a separate room.
Yeah.
And that's really been helpful too, because the problem is when people have tics, they oftentimes suppress them, because like you said, being in the work environment, you don't want people to maybe hear the tics all day. You're self-conscious. But what that leads to is like sometimes the tic attacks afterwards.
Yep. I had so many after work. So many.
So if they can learn that, so that's why the CBIT therapy was also developed, is to help people not have to suppress them, but learn how to manage them in a healthier way.
Yeah.
So they can have a better life, like a more
Yeah.
comfortable, productive life. Obviously, the therapy is not for everybody.
Yeah.
But for people that choose to try it and put the work in, I've just seen like the benefits outweigh the negative. I haven't seen anything negative, obviously, that I can say about it yet. If anything, people are just learning more skills to help themselves and help their children.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm really glad that you brought up suppression, because that's actually a question that I had written down here. Because I think for me, and I'm just being super honest here, like in my mind, and now this is limited belief in my mind because I never actually did it, it always seemed like it was kind of suppression based to me. And I think that could be a confusion that a lot of people have as well. So I definitely want to ask, like, so, and obviously you've explained it a little bit, so I understand how that's different. But I think, what would you say, like, for people that still kind of seem to think that that's you or a CBIT therapist, like trying to suppress by like breathing out or anything like that? Like, have you had those questions come up, or how do you handle that when that's brought up?
Yeah, so in all the literature that has come out, and like when I went and got certified, the number one question is, well, aren't you replacing your tic for another thing that could become a tic? There's no research based at all with all the stuff they've done, and all the people that other people have worked with, where it shows that tic was replaced with another tic.
Yeah.
It gives them, so the way it works is that your tic kind of just fades away, and you don't catch on with that other, it's called the competing response or the tic blocker.
Yeah.
So it's not like, if you have, I always just use the yelling tic because I think that's a good one to like talk about. So with the yelling tic, when you're yelling out, and then we do the tic blocker where we breathe in through the mouth and out through the nose, over time the yelling tic goes away, but you're not going to just sit there all day and breathe in through your mouth and out through your nose.
Right.
It's not going to become a learned behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And it's still doing
really,
something.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, it's your body's still doing something, so that probably and I'm just talking, you're like, in my mind, it almost is, it's giving that your brain that like completeness feeling, probably a little bit, because your body is still doing something. Because for me, like, my tick has to feel like it's complete, otherwise like, that's what, if I always say, like, if I mess up my ticks, like when my foot kicking tic, for example, if I'm not kicking the ground the way I need to kick it, like that OCD, that Tourette OCD or whatever that comes in with it, the tick gets more aggressive, and it gets and I have to do it faster, and I have to make sure I do it right on both now. So if I mess it up on the first try, I do that over. But if I do it right on the first foot and I mess it up on my left foot, then I got to do it over. And then like my brain starts going in overdrive, and that leads me into my tic tacs. So to me, it is making sense to me that it's almost giving that feeling in a different way, a much more easier, like calm way. So
And the way that I also explain to parents, like this is like a twofold thing that I kind of want to say. So a lot of parents, it's hard for kids to explain to their parents like what they actually feel like. So when
yeah,
I always talk to parents, and you're the expert, so you could tell me if this is what you feel. To have a tic, I tell parents, this is what I was told, is to like open up your eyes and not blink. And that's
yeah,
what someone kind of feels like when you have a
hmm,
tic. Imagine me telling you, you cannot blink and
yeah.
you want to blink. Or I use the one that if you have poison ivy, you know how bad it itches.
Oh God, yeah.
So to the average person, if I say don't scratch that, you know not to scratch it. But if you have
Hmm,
a tic or Tourette, it's like you have to scratch that. Like your
yeah,
body's going to explode
yes.
if you don't scratch it.
Hmm,
Um, so I think that what I've heard from the kids that I work with, the doing this therapy, it gives them a sense of like they have some type of control over their own body. It makes them feel better when they go to the movies or they're sitting in their class. I have so many instances of kids that tell me different ways that it has like positively affected their life.
I have no memory of living inside a body that didn't have tics, that didn't do things. Like obviously sometimes like when I move my hands when I talk, like I'm deciding, well, I just move my hands a lot, so I'm not always consciously deciding to do that, but like things like that. But when I danced, it was like that control came back to me. I moved my body. I never ticked when I danced ever. It was this euphoria that came over me. So when you were saying that, like that's kind of what I connected into, and because it's something that I miss, because it was a time where I got to have control again. And that's kind of what I tell people. Like it's not. I've told people the blinking thing sometime, and I've told them like holding your breath, like because like the longer you hold your breath, by the time you come out, it comes out like. Like it
Yep.
comes out so much more forceful than you would have just if you would have just breathed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of similar. So the longer and longer I suppress, the more that's going to come out. And that's why it leads to tic tacs, because my body's like, hey, there's like a bunch of things we're ticking off that you did not do that we needed to do. And so having that control back, even for just a little bit, to go do something that you want to do that you otherwise might have been scared to do is incredible. So I think that's amazing that you do that for people. It's wonderful.
Thank you. And then also we like the third or fourth session, we go into like some like diaphragmatic breathing and stuff to like just help relax the body and just in certain
Yeah.
situations, you know, like sometimes kids will say right before they're going to sleep, they notice their tics are really ramped up. So
Yes.
we'll do that. Yeah. We'll do the breathing exercises and we'll say, okay, we're going to do that right before you go to bed, you know?
Okay. Yeah.
So,
No, I can see that. And you mentioned you kind of it's like you know what questions I want to ask because you're setting me up for them. Because you said about like the third or fourth session, and I know it's probably different for everybody. It probably depends on how prominent the tic is. Maybe it depends on how long they've had it. I'm not sure. But about how many sessions would you say if they're doing the work outside of it? About how long do you think it normally, if you can say, it takes for people to start noticing a difference?
like you said, everyone's different.
Yeah.
I sometimes I want to say maybe like the third or fourth session, people will tell me
Oh
that they
wow.
already see a little bit of a difference if they're really practicing. Like,
Yeah.
so the more you practice, and I always tell this to people, you have to practice intentionally.
Yeah.
So a lot of the teenagers I work with, they're like, oh, well, when I'm practicing it, when I feel the tick, I'm like, no, no, no. Remember we talked about the homework,
Yeah.
practicing it intentionally. Like
Yeah.
when you're home from school, sit down at the table and practice intentionally. So I
Yes.
want them to do the exercises that they would do when they actually feel the tick happening. But because I want their body to always be ready so they know
Yeah.
exactly what to do. So
Yes.
the more intentionally that they practice is the faster they're going to see the results.
Yeah. And I would imagine too, the more they do that, the more they'd be able to do it anywhere. So, for example, if I was out in public and you had worked with me on my foot kicking tick and you gave me a reverse, what did you call it again?
It's a competing response
Competing response.
or a tick blocker, whatever.
Yeah. No matter what I'm doing, I'm assuming like it would come more naturally for me to be like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
no, like let me do this
Yep.
response so that I don't have to do this right here. Because sometimes I'm like hopping on one foot into the other, like it's not like always discreet. Most of the time people think I just tripped and I let them think that. I'm like, yeah, I'm clumsy, whatever. Ha ha ha. Because like, it gets tiring having to explain myself all the time. So I'm just like, oh no, I trip all the time. It's no big deal.